There's a figure throughout Deltarune that has his fingerprints everywhere. From the character creation sequence, to his motif appearing throughout the game, to even driving secret bosses insane because he's bored, Gaster's fingerprints are all over this game. He clearly has at least some importance. The question I pose today, though, is not whether he's important, but rather whether or not he's an antagonist. Is bro evil? Or is he friend-shaped? Today, I want to dive into some of what we know about Gaster, and see whether or not this information frames him as an antagonist. It should be noted that being an antagonist does not necessarily make you evil. An antagonist can easily have good intentions or be morally gray. It just happens to be that in a lot of fiction, antagonists tend to be evil. That being said, let's begin. River Person. They warn us of two things. First is to beware of the man who came from the other world. This one we can't be sure that it's referring to Gaster. It could be referring to Icy for all we know. The second warning, however, is a bit more blatant. Beware of the man who speaks in hands. Look, with this one, I don't know who else it could be referring to aside from Gaster. The dude quite literally speaks in hands. I think it's safe to assume that this is referring to him. Anyways, this is one of the only mentions of Gaster that you don't need to do much digging for. And this mention is not just to know of his existence, but to beware of him. Ominous. One of the few mentions of Gaster that you don't need to dig for is one that's warning us about him. I think this pretty safely goes into the antagonist category. Narratively, you wouldn't warn of a character like this for no reason. The number 6. Gaster is heavily associated with the number 6, and more specifically, the number 666. I mean, just look at his stats in Undertale's files. His typeface value in entry 17 is 666, his name is 6 letters long, and any fun events directly related to him are within the 60s range. Basically, if you see the number 6, it will likely be related to him. Okay, what's the significance of this though? 666, referred to as the number of the beast in the New Testament, in the modern day is most commonly associated with the Antichrist or the devil. I don't see how this would bode well for any character to be associated with the devil. I don't think this one needs much explanation. The Gaster follower and Goner NPCs. So I have the Gaster followers and Goner NPCs in the same category. In my mind, I consider the Gaster followers to be Goners. For one, both share the same monochromatic color scheme, and two, the sound effect SND_mystery_go is only used for the Mystery Man NPC, Gaster Follower 2, and Goner Clam Girl, with the Mystery Go sound effect itself likely being a sped up, looped, and reversed version of Gaster's theme. If both a Gaster follower and a Goner share a sound effect potentially made from Gaster's theme, then yeah, they're probably related. Anyways, before I go into any of what these NPCs have to say, let's just think about the naming for these NPCs. Goners. Let's assume that the Gaster followers are indeed Goners. Having the only NPCs that directly mention you by name be Goners isn't exactly something that would frame any character well. What does being a Goner actually mean for a character? Well, I'm not actually entirely sure. All I am sure of, though, is that it's likely not a positive thing. I mean, in what world is the word Goner a positive? Alright, but what do any of these Goner NPCs or Gaster followers say of interest? Well, they say that Gaster was the royal scientist, and more specifically, he created the core. The core provides power to all the underground. The core is a net positive for monsters of the underground. Though it is entirely possible the core could have been made for Gaster's own selfish reasons. Especially with the darkness totems littered about the place, harkening back to Gaster's mysterious experiment in entry 17. But I'm not going to dig too deep into this. Let's just take it at the surface level. This is something positive for the underground. I'll put this in the no category. Making the secret bosses go insane. If you are not aware, in chapter 1 and 2 of Deltarune, there are two secret bosses, Jevil and Spamton. Both of these characters eventually went insane after coming into contact with a mysterious figure. With Jevil, Sham speaks of a mysterious figure who came into contact with Jevil, made Jevil go mad, and made Sham's worldview darker yet darker as a result. As for Spamton, he came into contact with a mysterious benefactor, and became incredibly successful as a result. This was until one day, the benefactor helping Spamton vanished, and his success came crashing down, with him then eventually being evicted out of Queen's Mansion. On the day of the eviction, an Addison NPC came to check up on Spamton, but what they found was that Spamton was already gone, and that Spamton had left his phone hanging off the handle. When this Addison put their ear up to the phone, all they heard was garbage noise. Why is that relevant? Well, when we use our phone in the dark world, what we hear is a sound effect that is described as garbage noise. And where does this sound effect originate from? None other than entry 17. This most certainly is not a coincidence. With Spamton, the Gaster ties are a bit more apparent to me than with Jevil, but they're still there with both characters. Besides, I think it's safe to assume whoever this mysterious figure is that made Jevil go insane, and whoever helped Spamton, is likely the same entity. In any case, let's assume for our purposes this guy is Gaster. He provided some kind of knowledge to not one, but two Darkners, which directly caused both to go insane from said knowledge. Causing two characters to go insane is not something that paints this guy in a great light. It's not something especially positive. I don't think I need to argue much on why this goes into the yes category. For this next point, I heard that Gaster subscribes to channels he really enjoys. So if you aren't already, I highly encourage you to subscribe. It'd truly go a long way in supporting the channel. Okay, that aside, let's put together some of the things I've mentioned thus far. Gaster's heavily tied to the number 666. He fell into his creation. He provided some knowledge, perhaps forbidden knowledge, to two characters, and drove both mad as a result. If you're not getting it by now, Gaster has heavy allusions to the devil. But there's even more parallels between Gaster and the devil than just this. I want to bring your attention to the start of Deltarune. In the character creation sequence, you're interacting with a mysterious figure, the song Another Hymn playing in the background. This character is most certainly Gaster. The narrator here has a typer value of 666. The way he speaks is in a manner extremely similar to Gaster. The character we're creating is referred to as a goner in the files. And finally, the song in the background is very much Gaster's theme. The name of this song is Another Hymn, which is referencing the file name for Gaster's theme in Undertale. That file name being mus_st_hymn. Basically, this is almost without a doubt Gaster we're interacting with. Why do I bring up this sequence though? Well, this sequence you're making a deal with Gaster. You're accepting his terms, the terms of this survey program, making a deal with the devil. Your soul is even on screen during this sequence if you wanted to make the comparison to selling your soul to the devil. Character creation sequence aside, we can also point to the fact that back in Undertale, all his followers are goners. Why do I bring this up? Well, we can make the comparison to when Lucifer was cast down from heaven, so were his followers. There's a lot of things you can point to that I haven't mentioned involving Gaster having parallels to the devil, but I think you should get the general idea. Allusions to the devil, for most characters across any kind of narrative, usually points to that character being some kind of antagonist, evil force, etc. I'm putting this one in the yes section. Okay, so with all this information in mind, is there any way having allusions to the devil could be interpreted positively? Well, there is one way. What does the prophecy of the Deltarune describe? Stopping the roaring and banishing the angel's heaven. If Gaster is the devil, he stands in direct contrast to the angel, a figure who is seemingly going to bring about the end of the world. I think this is one thing in my mind that would point to him not necessarily being an antagonist. And to strengthen this a little, the reason why we can assume Gaster would want us to banish the angel's heaven is that on Deltarune's website, all the way back in 2016, there was some text in Wingding's font that stated, 3 heroes appeared to banish the angel's heaven. This is the first mention of the prophecy as it is in Deltarune that we ever got. And it's from Gaster. Of course, this involves assuming that he does indeed want us to banish the angel's heaven, but I don't think it's a leap to assume this, especially with all the allusions to the devil when it comes to this guy. Kris is seemingly afraid of the bunker at the bottom of Hometown. Why is this relevant at all? Well, when you go near this bunker, you hear a strange sound. What is this sound? Well, it's a slowed down version of the sound Muzz_smile. The sound that plays when you use your phone in a dark world, and more notably, the sound that plays during Entry 17. Okay, so if we assume this place is connected to Gaster, because of that sound in particular, drawing attention to Kris being scared of this place is an interesting choice. One I don't think is positive if Gaster is truly involved with whatever this bunker is. I think this one should probably go in the yes section. The devil illusions with Gaster are certainly interesting, especially when you take into account the prophecy in Deltarune mentioning us banishing the angel's heaven. Lucifer fell down from heaven, being a fallen angel. We have no idea who the angel might be in Deltarune, or their motivations, but this idea of Gaster being a fallen angel is interesting. Does this not imply at some point he was the angel himself? We don't really know what the angel wants in Deltarune. I don't think it's too much of a leap to think that Gaster poses the angel, especially with all the devil illusions that he has. Well, is there anything to suggest that he was the angel at some point outside of the obvious Lucifer falling down from heaven parallels? Not really in Deltarune, at least. But how about in Undertale? Well, let's think back. In Undertale, the prophecy involves someone who has seen the surface, returning, and bringing freedom to monsters. As royal scientist, what would have Gaster been tasked with? Well, likely the same thing as Alphys, breaking the barrier and bringing freedom to the underground. Assuming he was indeed tasked with breaking the barrier, and was working towards this goal, you can consider him to sort of be like the angel described in the legend. But obviously he wasn't successful. Instead, fell into his creation and vanished, quite literally being a fallen angel in this case. So perhaps in Deltarune, Gaster was at some point the angel or held the title, but at some point he fell down from heaven. As to what merits being the angel in Deltarune, I'm not sure. But I have a feeling that just like in Undertale, there will both be a positive and negative interpretation of the angel. In Undertale, there were two interpretations of the angel. One positive, bringing freedom to monster kind, and one negative, an angel of death descending and killing all monsters, causing the underground to go empty. In Deltarune, we kind of already see two contrasting views on the angel. In the prophecy, we're told we will banish the angel's heaven, implying the angel to be a force we're opposing. While if we speak to Father Alvin, the angel seems to be an entity that's worshipped in the light world, and generally more positively painted there. What does this all mean? Truthfully, I have no idea, but it's all interesting to me nonetheless, and I thought I should bring it up. This list wasn't comprehensive of everything involving Gaster across both games, but I tried to keep it to more apparent connections to the guy. And with what we've covered, I think we have much more negative framing of this guy in general. We don't know a ton about him, or what role he'll end up playing in Deltarune. With all this negative framing in mind, I think it's likely he'll play some kind of antagonistic role. With all the allusions to the devil, it doesn't get much more blatant than that. In my mind, a lot of these things we do know about Gaster end up framing him in a more negative light. A darker light, if you will. I think the easiest way for me to see that these are more negative traits is just to try and generally apply this information we know to any character in fiction. With what we know, would it really frame anyone in a good light if you're having parallels to the devil? No, I don't really think so. That aside, there was one last thing I wanted to bring up, and that was during the Undertale 6th anniversary livestream, Toby Fox, in reference to King, stated that,
I think that fountain definitely changed his behavior. For sure.
If we interpret this as the Dark Fountain corrupting King, what does that mean for someone like Gaster? If we assume his experiments have involved dark fountains, would he likely not be under constant exposure to these things? Even if he has, or had, good intentions, perhaps these fountains have warped his behavior, making him into a darker, yet darker version of himself. That's just food for thought though. In any case, these were just my thoughts. It's very possible I missed some things about Gaster that could potentially frame him in a better light, or perhaps you just interpret some of these things differently than I do. In any case, I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comments section down below. So you've made it to the end. Thank you so much for watching. I truly hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy, then I encourage you to subscribe and leave a like and comment on this video. It'd go a long way in supporting the channel. And as a side note, I just want to say thank you all so much for the support on the last two videos. It truly does mean the world to me. And with that, video done. Bye-bye.